Hi, everyone. Welcome to Story Mantra, the mantra I live my life by, story and the best of storytelling. And we have the best of storytelling today with an amazing, amazing author whose book has literally taken the world by storm. She is no other than New York Times bestselling author, Asha Lemmie. Welcome, Asha.
Thank you for having me.
Asha hasn't just written a novel, she has written a novel that's going to change the way a lot of people eat, breathe, and think, because the book 50 Words for Rain has been described in the New York Times Review as Asha Lemmie's sprawling, thought-provoking debut novel. 50 Words for Rain will give you 50 reasons to cancel the rest of your day. That's not all. Let me see, there's another one here. Asha Lemmie's debut novel, 50 Words for Rain, follows 8-year-old Nori after she's abandoned by her mother and left to fend for herself in the unkind graces of a family built on tradition and power. Lemmie has penned an impassioned story that confronts the uncomfortable truths behind institutionalization, prejudice, and the history of violence and subjugation of the powerless by those on the highest rungs of society. It's an emotional journey with the unexpected ending. That's Mary Lynn Brack from author. She's the author of White Chrysanthemum. I could go on and on. There's another one here from Kirkus. Lemmie's sweeping historical backdrop from the post-World War II decline of minor royalty through the expanding liberation of the 1960s is breathtaking. A bold historical portrait of a woman overcoming oppression. So who is Asha Lemmie? Wonder who she is. She is New York Times bestselling author. After graduating from Boston College with a degree in English literature and creative writing, she relocated to New York City, where she worked in book publishing. Asha writes historical fiction that focuses on bringing unique perspectives to life. In normal times, she divides her time between New York, London, and Kyoto, and 50 Words for Rain is her first novel, and this is what the cover looks like. And can you show us the hard copy?
This is the paperback.
Oh, the paperback is there. So you have both versions available, depending on what you want to read and what kind of a reader you are. So Asha, tell me, what's this travel that you do between New York, London, and Kyoto?
So I'm very restless by nature and I'm highly nomadic. And, when there's not a global pandemic going on, I do like to travel a lot. I have people that I can stay with in London, Kyoto, a couple of other places, which means I don't need to pay for a hotel, which makes travel a lot more doable, because I really just have to pay for flights and food, and then I get a train pass and I go around from there. So, I'm probably would be considered an Anglophile, at least when it comes to like British history. I've read probably over 100 books on the Tudors, the Victorians, all of that. I'm really fascinated by that kind of thing. I've always been really interested in the dynamics between families when families are also synonymous with power.
So a lot of interest in history there. Is that what took you to Japan in post-war era?
That's part of it, yes. I really wanted to delve into a history that wasn't as well known here in the West, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And I hope to get to spend some more time there after, Japan is still kind of struggling with COVID. I mean, Tokyo is in its fourth or fifth lockdown. It's not really a great situation, but I have my fingers crossed that in 2022 I can get back.
Do you do a lot of your research while you're actually at location as well, or is that just?
I definitely try to. It's obviously, I'm working on a second book right now. It doesn't take place in Japan. It takes place in France and Cuba and New York. Obviously, New York, I still have access to New York, but I was supposed to go to Havana and I haven't been able to go. I think you can go again now, but I think it's very recent that happened. And then, they say there's this new variant of COVID and so I don't know. It's going to be tough. I've canceled my flight to Paris 4 times.
Oh dear.
The last time I canceled it, they were like, would you like to rebook? And I was like, no, I don't want to rebook. No.
Oh dear, that's not easy. That really isn't easy. So tell me a little bit about yourself. You love to travel. I know you're a great cook.
Mhm.
We talked about that. Any favorite recipes?
I have a really good recipe for ramen
Hmm.
that involves making the noodles from scratch.
Oh, so that's different from just getting the pre-packed version.
I am a noodle snob. It's
Okay,
actually really not difficult to make your own noodles. Like you'll fail miserably the first couple of times, but it's very simple. It's just practice.
sure.
And it tastes so much better,
You make
really.
it sound so easy. It's just practice.
Well, it's easy for me now, but that's because I've had all of COVID to perfect the art of being stuck in the house and making my own noodles.
Noodles. Tell us a little bit about your cat.
His name is Aslan. He's 4. He's evil.
He's evil.
I love him dearly, but he's a little terrorist. I think he's plotting a coup.
Oh dear.
He's caught every time I sit down to write, he comes and nibbles on my ankle, or he'll unplug my computer cord, or he'll fling himself at the back of my head. He's locked in the bathroom right now, so I
Ah,
can talk to you.
how sad. Well, at least we know that Aslan knows what he wants, just like you do with your noodle making.
Aslan knows what he wants more than I do.
Oh, more than you do.
Yes. I mean, he wakes me up every morning at 7 a.m. exactly because he wants his breakfast and it has to be the red can, not the green can, or he won't eat it. He only eats
Oh
the
gosh.
green cans at night. This cat is extremely high maintenance. I may have spoiled him. I have a huge spot for anything on 4 legs.
That is so funny. So tell me about the characters in your book. I'm halfway through the book. I have fallen in love with all the characters, especially, of course, Noriko and Akira, the main two leading characters. But I also feel for the secondary characters like Miyuko, her friend, and then of course the help, who want to help but are really stuck in a position where they can't go beyond their limits. How did you put together that hierarchy of Japanese society, culture, how it functions?
So I had some help in the sense that people don't really change very much. And the whole idea of class or caste is something that is present in every society. We just call it different things. And some societies are more upfront about the inequality than others, but inequality is a fact of life. It's not going anywhere.
Mhm.
I think we just had this little chat that it hasn't disappeared so much as it's just moved underground.
Sure.
And politeness is a big thing in a lot of cultures, and including in Japan. And so they won't necessarily come out and say you're not good enough for us, or you can't sit with us, so to speak. They just won't sit with you. They won't ever actually tell you, you know so I think one of the things I did in this novel is I laid it a little more bare. And with Nori's family being so dysfunctional,
Yeah.
at least behind those closed doors, they're not hiding how they feel about her. They're not hiding how they feel about, her mother.
Right.
It's on display. So I think what we get with the multiple perspectives and the secondary characters is we see that not everybody feels that way, though. I mean, Nori's friend Miyuki is not biased against her. She's just happy to have a friend. As far as she sees them both as young girls in a messed up situation. And I don't think she's worried about the things that divide them, the race, the class.
Mhm.
They're both just two girls who are doing the best they can.
Tell me a little bit about, and I forget the character's name in the second part where she's taken to the house, where she's, taken over by this entirely new lifestyle and expectations. And the woman who runs that house, um, how does and she feels sorry for Nori at the end as well. She wants to help her, but she can't. So how does that perspective play in?
Well, I think Kiyomi is a good example of goodness in the service of badness.
Mhm.
I think she finds herself in a situation where she does care about these girls, but at the same time, I think she's accepted that the world is a bitter pill for some people, and she's not going to fight against it. She does what she can, which, as she will freely admit, is not much.
Mm.
Um, so, I wonder what she could have done had she been dealt a different hand in life. What she does is not great or ideal, but I don't think she's a bad person. And I think that's one thing I try to show with a lot of the characters in the novel, is that they're perhaps products of their circumstances and the limitations of those circumstances. But I try to show glimpses of more.
She's a victim of society herself and of the whole
Yeah,
patriarchy
it
system.
absolutely is. I mean,
Yeah.
she was sold
Yeah.
like a cow as a child, and it's kind of difficult if you find that you work your way up into a position of middling power. I understand the urge to hold on to it. Definitely.
Would you say a lot of your fiction mirrors fact? Because it's based on research, I understand that, but still, the perspectives that come in, the hierarchy, the levels of cultural, um, just chaos that comes in.
There's a very patriarchal norm in most Asian cultures, in most African cultures, in Indian culture. That's not changed. Women have more now than we did 50 years ago, absolutely no doubt. But there is definitely still this unspoken rule that the primary focus of a woman's life should be to get married and have children.
Mm-hmm.
You can have other things, that's nice, but never lose sight of what's most important. But we don't socialize men that way. And so I think it creates this imbalance where women are making men the center of our universes, and they're not making us the center of theirs.
Do you hope for that to change? Is that a part of your book? I'm only halfway through, so I'm not going to ask the end, but just as an author, as a woman who's also an author and writing from a cultural perspective, do you hope for that to change or shift? And if so, what way?
I think it's okay to love and be loved, but I think one must never lose sight of one's personal fulfillment in life. And I think it's also very important for that fulfillment to exist independently of any other human being, because, not to be cynical, but at the end of the day, all you have for certain is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to find something within yourself that will keep you going, always.
Sure. And tell me a little bit about, the restraints that men had in Japan at that time, in the era you wrote.
Well, men ran society, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is no surprise. That's not a new concept.
Sure.
But there was you also, even amongst men, you have to factor in class. You have to factor in who's born into a family where they have money and they have access to better schools, and who's born into a family where they're kind of scraping the bottom of society.
Sure.
This whole thing of the untouchable.
Yeah.
Existed and still exists, and I think when you're on the lower rung of the social hierarchy, one feels the need to prove themselves more. This whole idea of a meritocracy arose only because these poor, downtrodden people basically said, well, you may not like me, but you're going to need me for something.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need me for something. And I think that that's where education comes in. If you can get an education and become a doctor, well, you may have been born a nothing, but now you're someone that people need.
You pull yourself out of that.
Pull yourself out of that, and now they have to respect you.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's one of the things I admire the most about Japanese culture, is the work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
Is insane. It it really is inspiring, but there's a dark side to that too, which is, I mean, there's actually a word in Japanese that translates to death from overwork,
Right.
you know, and unfortunately the suicide rate is not so great. I
Right.
think maybe there is this saving face too much can be dangerous because we've all got things and we've all got problems and we all have bad days and we all fail sometimes, and it still needs to be acceptable to talk about those things. And so we're not repressing it to the point where, we're jumping off buildings. That's not good.
Yeah.
So, but I think there's just so much pressure in a lot of places in the world. I mean, I had a roommate who's from Hong Kong,
Mhm.
and she was like, "Oh, I'm going to study for my exam," because she was going to graduate school back in Hong Kong. And like, I don't think I saw her for 2 months, so because she was like, "Well, it's free, but you have to get in. And there's a couple million people who will study that extra hour a day and take your spot." I mean, and like, she was a kind of a train wreck at one point. Like, I had to like feed her. I bring her food. I bring her water. She looked like she was gonna pass out.
Oh my gosh. Well, a lot of the problems of that also, Asha, is that, how we base our self-worth. And
Yeah.
In Asia, your self-worth is really tied and attached to how you score on an exam or on a test, or what do you bring in, or, the bread at the end of the day kind of thing. Your self-worth is attached, and for many women in Asia, your self-worth is attached to your marital status.
Yeah, that's a huge one too. I totally understand. I have personal experience with that,
Mhm.
and I get it. I really do get it. I was a gifted kid. People expected a lot of me. I was a not so gifted teenager and a not so gifted early 20 something, and I felt like a failure. I felt like people were looking at me like, "Oh, that's a shame."
Why would you get that feeling? Is it their reaction?
Wasn't so much the feeling so much as people came out and said it to me.
Really?
Yeah. Like I was I had wasted my potential and I was washed up at the ripe old age of 22.
Well, I hope you show them this book. You prove them all wrong, because what you have done is an outstanding work of art. It really is. And, sometimes we don't need to say who we are. We just do what we need to, and our work speaks up for ourselves.
I have nothing to prove. One of the great ironies about this whole life thing is that there was a time I really wanted validation from people and I never did get it. And so eventually the part of me that needed that just kind of shriveled up and died.
Good.
And so now I'm surrounded by a validation, which is lovely, but I don't care
You
anymore.
don't care anymore.
It's just like, of course, because of course that's how it goes, right? Where was all of this?
When I wanted it.
Yeah,
Hey, you're living free now.
I am free.
Hey,
Yes, absolutely.
you're living free, and you've got this wonderful cat, Aslan, who you've spoiled to death
Oh my
to
God.
prove it. To prove it. So tell me a little bit about writing in multiple points of view. That's something I'm enjoying as I'm reading your book. And it's not head hopping and it's not hopscotching. It's literally multiple points of view at the right time of the story.
Yes. So the reason I chose to include multiple perspectives in this novel is because Nori is kind of limited in her perspective. Information is intentionally kept from her. She's isolated. She's young. She's not integrated into society. She doesn't understand cultural norms or societal norms in the same way as other people might because she's literally kept totally separate. So I thought it was important to have adult perspectives. I thought it was important to have perspectives from characters who knew the full story surrounding, her circumstances, to give the reader a fuller picture. And I had a lot of fun doing it.
Sure. Well, you do a great job. I'm enjoying going, some from one character's perspective to another, just at the right time, which keeps the story flowing beautifully and it hypes up the conflict at the same time. What does it mean for you to write multicultural fiction?
It's very important to me. I come from like a time when a lot of books featured exclusively white protagonists, and particularly historical fiction, which has always been my favorite genre. It's in the running for maybe the whitest genre in all of fiction. So to be able to write stories that feature characters of color in, roles that we don't usually get to see them in this genre is really meaningful to me.
Well, I'm just, I'm really impressed with everything you've said so far. You're definitely more mature than what you let us believe, because to all the people who are thinking of reading this book, let me tell you, like I said, I'm halfway through it. I already feel it's like reading Flowers in the Attic, the entire series, which meets Memoirs of a Geisha. It's that beautiful a read. You feel for Nori. You absolutely want her to be free, to be happy, and yet you can't understand how she can do it with the constraints within the time period of Japan. And I just finished reading another book by Anna Johns, The Woman in the White Kimono. I love that book to death. And so, reading Asha Lemmie's book is just like the story continues for me. We're in Japan, post-war era. It's a beautiful read. And if I haven't told you this before, let me tell you now why you should grab her book and read it. 50 Words for Rain is Amazon's top 10 books of 2020, and it was an Amazon Spotlight for the month of September. It was Good Morning America's book club pick for September, and she was she was interviewed and highly, widely advertised on Good Morning America, because it is that beautiful a read. It's a Barnes & Noble pick for September. It's a New York Times editor choice pick. It's a Nobel Peace Prize winner of the Malala Yousafzai's Literati Book Club pick. Is there anything I missed out, Asha?
I don't know. Don't count.
You're so humble. You're so modest. And that's another reason to grab her book. The story will leave you turning the pages, because this is just in a nutshell what the story is about. I didn't bring it up at the beginning, so here I am now. Do not question, do not fight, do not resist. Such is 8-year-old Nori Kamiza's first lesson. She will not question why her mother abandoned her with only these final words. She will not fight her confinement to the attic of her grandparents' imperial estate, and she will not resist the scalding chemical baths she receives daily to lighten her skin. Spanning decades and continents, 50 Words for Rain is a dazzling epic about the ties that bind, the ties that give you strength, and what it means to be free. That's just beautiful, Asha. Tell me if you can share with us a writing tip or a query tip with our viewers.
You have to externalize rejection of your work. It's not rejection of you. It's not personal. I know it feels personal because we put so much effort and work into a book, and but you've got to get really comfortable with rejection, because it never goes away. Even if you write a massively successful bestseller, someone is still going to hate it. And in the age of the internet, somebody's probably going to try to make sure that they hated it. It's unfortunate, but it's true. So,
well, what we do is subjective to begin with.
What we do is subjective. It is so subjective. And, honestly, you just have to accept that you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Why would you want to be?
Right. So how did you figure out at this young an age how to manage and handle rejections, who to query, how to go about the process of publishing?
Well, I'm very used to rejection, so I suppose it doesn't sting the way that it once did. I've failed at more things than I've succeeded at in my life. I think sometimes people don't believe that because, oh, you're so young. Yeah, but I've lost more than I've won. It's just that people only see the victories.
Well, we see the victory in this success. We see the victory in the next book to come, which you're working on. I cannot wait to read it. I'm truly excited about that next second book. And we wish you all the best, Asha. You are an amazing writer, incredibly talented, and we cannot wait to chat with you again.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything you'd like to leave as a last goodbye message to our viewers?
Yes, absolutely. If you're just getting started and trying to get published, remember that it's a marathon, not a sprint. It can take a very long time. It doesn't mean that you're failing. You're not competing with anybody else. You're not even competing with yourself. remember that you started this because it made you happy. So I know it's difficult, but stay happy.
Thank you, Asha. And with these parting words, we say goodbye from Story Mantra, and we look forward to 2022, which is
Yay.
just around the corner.
Oh God, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much, Asha.
Thank you. Bye.